Oh, I love German. Sorry, it's obviously a German, but the sorry, I'll calm down. It's fun for me. I love languages. I think I annoy my daughter constantly because every time we say something, I try to do it in all 4 languages at once, which is probably annoying. But it helps me keep my vocabulary up, so it's probably good for my mind. But so once he gets to the end of that book, right, the things that you can't talk about, well, then we have to pass those over in silence, right? And the things he means are our emotions and so on, and our values. You can't really talk about those. You can't do science. When we think about what's the difference between science and religion, or whatever, the main thing really is that in religion, which we also call faith, is a belief in our values, our highest values. And strictly speaking, science doesn't deal with values. Although, of course, they actually have to be human and to do anything, you have to have a set of values. So there's such a thing as being a good scientist. You have to be a good scientist. Well, what does that mean? It means they have a set of values which can't be explained scientifically. Although you would say, well, that you're honest in repeating the results of your experiments, that you're honest in recognizing that your experiments are repeatable. There's a whole bunch of things that you're open in communicating to others. You don't keep your conclusions secret. So there's a whole bunch of things that scientists in the community pretty much strictly expect good scientists to do. But they don't talk about the fact that those values are basically Christian values, depending on your meaning of Christianity, right? And so if you ask why is scientific development primarily occurring in countries, at least initially, that were Northern European, Protestant for the most part, right? Christian, right? Granted, there were earlier advances in other cultures, and since there certainly are. So the culture itself has spread, even though you might not have had a basis in a particular ethnic point of view, right?
I don't want to knock you down a bit here, but I mean, Plato wasn't a Christian.
Oh no, Christians were Platonic.
Those values were there before Christianity.
And Aristotelian, and also how common the scientific method became is almost completely credited to, at least the church and the West. Obviously, and the spread of.
They like to claim it. I'll put it that way.
No,
notice
sure.
I was agreeing with you, Lee, that Brendan Lee is the.
Yeah, you can call me.
It's the list has does, but in any case, the point there is that Christianity really is Jerusalem mixed with Athens. So the worldview is actually Platonic.
So that's the Judeo-Christian view in general.
Yes.
But the Judeo-Christian view is not the only one that came up with the scientific theory, utilized the scientific theory, or placed those values into those systems. That's what I'm saying. It's false to say that Europeans derive their scientific method.
Who invented TNT?
Christianity.
China, right? And and somehow Alfred Nobel got the credit.
Right. I'm not knocking on it. I'm just saying you got to look at.
Well, it's
all the
okay to
different
knock
people
on it.
that add to it.
Knock on it, yeah, sure.
No, I'll knock on it if it takes time.
Let's do it.
Oh, this is a welcome.
Knock on it.
This is a
It's not
philosophy
necessary
course.
in this
We're supposed to
conversation.
discuss this kind of stuff. By the way, in mentioning Alfred Nobel, who got credit for dynamite, which is a Chinese invention that he somehow became, rich because of, and created the Nobel Prize. If you're noticing, this is the week that the Nobel Prizes are being announced, Yesterday, two medical doctors were announced as the award recipients for the Nobel, and their primary development was in not cell understanding, but the smallest parts of the cell that we can find. Micro RNA or something, right? You know, that's like, I didn't even know this stuff was happening, and yet there it is, and they're doing stuff. Today's Nobel Prize winners that were announced are those Hutton, I think, and someone else, who are the ones considered to be the fathers of AI. So that was a surprise, because yes, physics, but AI. I was kind of thrown by that
Connection.
connection.
Using their product right now.
And there you go. So
Duo.
mention Alfred Nobel, and there you go. But yes, the Chinese came up with a lot of stuff. Ink?
Well, it's not just the Chinese. What I'm saying is, like, it doesn't matter where you go throughout history, you'll see, and this has been argued by many philosophers, modern philosophers, but no matter where you go, it's, I don't want to get into the whole human social construct and the idea of good and why we do social things and all that, but that's where it goes. You go to South America, you can go to Africa, you can go to remote islands where these communities have never even met another human being in the rest of the world, and they have the same principles and values that they follow, or somewhere along that line. Simple things like, hey, maybe murdering my neighbor is not a great idea, or raping the nearby village, that's not a good idea.
Well,
So on and so forth.
I mean, but also
We use the
they did
dramatic
opposite.
examples,
I
but
mean,
it's the minor examples too. Like,
there's also child sacrifice. And
here's a perfect example. I don't know you, right?
Mhm.
Like, we don't know each other.
Mhm.
But I wouldn't steal your notebook, right? That's not just because I'm from a Western culture. That's because
This
it's
is-
not a value to the community. for me to
Charlie,
treat you that way.
meet Brendan. Brendan, meet Charlie.
I mean, know you. Like, we don't
Sure.
hang out on the outside.
Yeah, sure.
You know what I mean? But yet, there's still that common pact. I'm not gonna go over there and steal your notebook. It's not a,
I mean,
if
I don't
really,
even know
really
if-
want your
sure.
notebook, I'm still not gonna do it.
But I'm not even sure you
It's
can
a
make that
communal
statement.
base.
I mean, how could you even escape Westernism if we're in it?
Oh, we can't.
So I know, but
That's-
I'm wondering how you could even like identify the fact that you wouldn't steal my notebook because
So you have
you're
to,
Western. I don't
now
know.
I'm gonna get on a whole nother sidetrack, but you have to be Jungian about it. You have to mix your
Jungian.
shadows. So,
I'd say Jungian.
and in order to do that, you have to know what it is you're capable of and not capable of,
Mhm.
whether you would do it or not, just that it's there.
Sure.
Right? I know I have the capability to steal your notebook, and maybe if I really, really, really wanted your notebook, I would.
Mhm.
What prevents me from doing that is my set of values. And we talked about this briefly kind of in email. Your values are informed by your culture, but that's not the only place.
But I mean, even back to the statement about like the civility of just general cultures, like that's, I mean, that might be acceptable and true in some instances, but it's absolutely not true in other instances.
No, that's right. Because
So
we
I-
don't value everything the same way, but we do value some things commonly, and that common value is what creates.
But what I'm saying is identifying those quote good values means that you have a metric by which to judge the difference
That's
between
where the
good
problem
and bad.
is, right?
And also, it's just inaccurate to say that all around the world of all time, there's always been good-willed people. I mean, that's not true. And how do you even identify what good-willed is?
I
don't
actually
even
could argue that
understand.
there is goodwill people, and there always has been. Otherwise, we wouldn't.
Well, sure. I mean, there has
Well-
been, but I'm just saying normative, like the
Let
consensus
me.
of the good.
This is a fan. I'm just thinking. Hey, I'm actually. I introduced this as an interesting problem, which you could see there's plenty of stuff to discuss about it, but that was how he ended his book, The Tractatus. And by the time he goes to Austria, takes a teacher's education, this is Wittgenstein, takes a teacher's education course where he learns to become an elementary education teacher. And the main book that he's reading is how we think, I think, by John Dewey, who is a Hegelian. And remember, Wittgenstein really wasn't a philosophy major per se. He did read some Kant, mostly was brought into it through language and analysis of language. But by reading Dewey, he becomes introduced to the organic view of the world instead of the mechanistic world. And part of that means that meaning isn't fixed.
Yes.
In the mechanistic view that Russell had, and Russell had that even till he was 98, I think, and died, right? One of the longest lived philosophers, although Dewey is also, I don't remember exactly how old Dewey was, but it was pretty late. Russell kept that mechanistic view and thought, language, the meaning of the word is a particular meaning. And by the way, another famous philosopher of the same time is C.S. Lewis. You've heard of C.S. Lewis, the Narnia stories, most everybody, The Lion, the Witch, the Wardrobe. But C.S. Lewis was actually, a philosopher in a much broader sense than just children's stories. Those children's stories were meant to communicate a particular religious narrative, Christian narrative, actually, right? But at the same time, he was a thinker in a broader sense, and he was on the side with Bertrand Russell and the education establishment of England that words had particular meanings. And the whole point of going to school was that the teachers who knew those meanings communicated those meanings to their children so that young people grew up to be able to communicate with the language clearly and precisely because they knew what the meanings were. But what Wittgenstein ends up learning from reading John Dewey is that language is organic and constantly evolving. So it's not a mechanistic model that you should have with regard to language. Instead, you should think that the word woke, when it was first used 5 or 6 years ago, meant one particular thing. Within a few months, it meant something else. Within a few months after that, it meant something else again. And probably today, if anybody's still using it, and I haven't heard it lately, it's probably just disappeared from view, right? That has run its course. It's a meme that changed what it meant, as things went. And so Wittgenstein comes back and he asks, what's the meaning of meaning? And he asks, okay, so what are we trying to encapsulate when we're talking about things and communicating? How can I understand what a lion is thinking? Because I don't know the world that the lion is in. Instead, the things that I'm trying to communicate in a particular social network are embedded in what he calls a form of life. And those forms of life are different from when I'm going shopping at Cars and I see sale. These oranges are on sale. These oranges are not on sale. In that environment, I know that I can still buy those other oranges even though they're not on sale. Because I know that sale item, that what it means by sale is that these are reduced in price. But they're still on sale, even if they're not on sale, right? That's a whole linguistic environment. I know what all the words, I'm a fluent speaker of shopping in Cars, right? Although I am upset about the future merging of Kroger and
I thought that got nixed.
did it? Well, that would be good. But because I've been through that multiple times.
We can get rid of them and bring it back to local.
Okay, that's a squirrel. But you get the idea. There's a form of life within each form of life, and so a hospital, different environment than Cars. I go in there. If I walked up to the information desk and I said to the person sitting there, I'm thinking of having a heart attack. When are you going to have heart attacks on sale? Right? Huh? No, they don't have sales. The hips are on sale this week. You want a new hip? Titanium. You get the titanium hip, or you could get the tin hip, or you can get we have gold hips.
So is it okay to, or it seems like there's a few things to to maybe reconcile here. So like if you choose the organic model over the mechanistic model, or the mechanical model or whatever, the organic model still retains principles of truth, like law of identity or everything we're discussing in the truth table, like that I equals I. Like I mean, you have to take this for granted in any system that you accept, right? And so it might be true